Hi there, I was just making some onion soup and I thought that I would chat to you while I'm making it. I've just got some onions here, I'm peeling them. And I was thinking about the things I would do differently if I was 50 once again. If you're over 50, this might be something that you would think about also, maybe. That if you got to live 50s over again, what would you do differently? And the first one I think I would do differently is to be aware that it's often a midlife time. Midlife crises happen, maybe with you or with your partner, and so life can change quite quickly. And I think if I was 50 again, I'd be more accepting of this. I wasn't particularly accepting of it, but it happens and we have to move on, don't we? So if I was 50 again, I'd probably embrace the changes that it brought and think of it as a fresh start more. The second part of being 50 again was being aware that you are starting to show the signs of aging. And up until that time, we've sort of had this idea that we're quite youthful, but once we're into our 50s, we can actually see that aging is happening and we realise that it's inevitable and we can't do a lot about it, really. Well, we can, but it's expensive. I think if I was 50 again, I'd be more accepting that this was the new phase of life. So the third one is about how we have to fight against becoming matronly. It's very easy to be conformist, to fit in with what everybody else does in their 50s, and it's hard to be yourself and try to be your best self, to look elegant. I think the French do it really well in some of the European countries where they dress really smartly, and I think I would probably fight harder not to gain weight, especially that middle-age spread that you get when you get into your 50s, which makes you look rather matronly. The third one is, the fourth one actually, is about our weight. So when we get into our 50s, we find it much harder to lose weight and much easier to gain it. Prior to that, really, with me, I could sort of think about losing weight and just cut back on a few meals and adjust my lifestyle a little bit, sort of become a little fitter, and I would lose the weight again. But after 50, that did not happen. And I think that happens with a lot of people, and we gain weight and we get a middle-aged spread, and it's really hard to shift. So I think if I was to do it again, I would be most careful to not gain that weight, because it's jolly hard to lose. It's sort of a time of life when we can treat ourselves more, we go out to restaurants more, and so we feel it's quite okay to gain a few pounds. So by being aware that this is going to be really hard to move, then perhaps we wouldn't gain it so much. The next one is about healthy living. I think I would have adopted that with more care earlier. I follow a few health gurus that talk about eating naturally and well, mainly plant-based. One of them is Dr. William Lee. He's on YouTube, and he talks about eating well as a way of beating cancer. And he has lots of statistics and studies, and it looks really good. So, and it's easy to do by making a list of the foods that he recommends and choosing those regularly. It's easy just to put into your diet. One of them is using onions and garlic when you're cooking more. Don't have to be doing a whole onion soup, however, but that's what I'm choosing to do today. Another one is about making more friends and being aware that as you age you're going to lose friends, and that's really sad. It happens, unfortunately, and so we need to be always making more friends. I think if I was 50 again, I was very social in my 50s, and many people that I met had the potential of becoming friends, but I didn't make an effort to do that. I think I would have made more effort to keep them as friends and meet up more often for meals perhaps, and just seeing if perhaps they would be, become your forever friends as well. So that's those ones. The other one that happens in your 50s is that you have more issues with hormones. If they haven't had menopause symptoms before, you certainly do in that era. Some people glide through and have very little, very lucky people. Fortunately, there are some things that can be done, even more now than what there was when I turned 50. And I think if I got to do that again, I would definitely be seeking out some medical help with that, to try and ease my way through the brain fog, the lack of sleep, the energy, the hot flushes. It's all pretty horrid. Also, in our 50s, we have aging parents, and that's not easy. They often have their own health problems, and so we're often having to drive to wherever they live, and not all parents live locally, and we need to be able to assist them as they age and help put the right cares in place for them. And in our 50s we might decide that we would like a career change. Sometimes we have worked in the same job for a very long time. I'm just putting butter in here, quite a lot of butter actually. And we might decide that we've had enough of that job, and what else could we do? So it's a good time to evaluate that in our 50s. Let me see here, that one. Just a moment, I'll turn that on and that one on as well. Let's make sure I've got no onion skins there. Alright, it's quite heavy. And I'll get a wooden spoon out. So that's another aspect to looking at our 50s, looking at what we might like to do as a career that may be in the back of our mind but we just haven't adjusted to. And it's maybe a time that we could do that, or just try it for a while. And the last one, number 10, for what we might do differently in our 50s, what I might do different, is realise that it is our second act, so to speak, for the next few decades. We can set it up to be completely different to what we've done before, which could be fun. I did something in my 50s which some people would be horrified at, and some might think was fun. I sold my house and everything and bought a caravan, like a trailer, and I travelled around New Zealand and I worked in different cities for several years at a time often, and it gave me a different perspective about my own country. I always wanted to visit places around the country, and I got to do that for quite a few years. Small living, minimalist living, which was fun. At times it was fun, at times it was challenging. It's not always easy, but it was an opportunity to do something different, and I did that. So you might want a second act as well of doing something different. So I will continue making this soup. I will come back to you in a few minutes when the onions have cooked. I'm just going to cook them really slowly in the butter, because you don't want to burn them, you don't want to caramelize them, just want to melt that butter. So I've got a heavy pan, and I'll just keep stirring them up until the butter has melted, and then I'll just cook them until they're golden. And I'll come back to you then. Hi again. Well, I'm back, and I have just done the very thing that I said not to do, and that was I have let the onions cook a little bit too much, and some of them have I don't know if you can see in here, they're a little bit more than golden. It's only the odd one that's sort of caught on the bottom somehow, but generally they are quite golden, as you can see here. and they're all clear, they're cooked clear. So now what we'll do is add a couple of stock cubes. This is cheating. I used some organic ones. This company, I think it's Australian, but the stock cubes are really nice. So I'll use a couple of those and put them in, and with some hot water that I've boiled, tip that in until the onions are covered nicely, and give that a bit of a stir around. And I will add a little bit of mushroom soy sauce. I like this because you can see how dark it is. The way after you let the soy sauce go to the top, it takes a very long time to clear, which shows it's very thick and strong. It comes out sort of like drizzles. Just try some of that. And I like to add some black vinegar. It's a Chinese black vinegar. It's one of the things that Dr. Lee mentions in his book about how to avoid cancer. So this particular vinegar has some ability to prevent cancer or to stop it. And I'm going to add some Worcestershire sauce as well, because that always adds a little something to it. Nice and strong. Just a little bit there. And then I shall put this back onto the stove with maybe some more water, because it is going to be soup. So I like my soups to be fairly thick. Don't want it completely runny. I'll show you when we come to the end of this. I'll lift it up. It's not going to work. I'll bring the camera around so you can see this, but for the moment this is just going to go back onto the stove and continue to cook. So we need to simmer it for, I don't know, you can simmer it for quite a while if you really want to, but I'll probably just simmer it for another 10 minutes or so. This is the cheats way of doing onion soup. I would like to use some beef bones and roast them in the oven and put them into a big pot, and then make some stock from that, boil it all up with salt and peppercorns and some herbs, and then after it is simmered for a couple of hours or more, you get the beautiful stock, and then you'd strain that off and put it into containers, about 2 cups per container, and freeze that. And then every time you need some stock for something, you can just whip out one of those containers. You know that you've got 2 cups worth, and it's perfect for adding to soups or to other savoury dishes. I'm just chopping up some parsley, which will go into the soup just towards the very end, so it doesn't become too discoloured. I like it to be still green when you're eating it, but just softened so it's not raw tasting, but it will just add a nice flavour to the onions. And parsley is good for freshening your breath, and when you're eating all those onions, it perhaps is a good idea to do that as well. So I'll just finish chopping this up and letting that soup simmer, and then I will come back to you and with the camera, and I'll show you how it's looking. Okay? Hello, I'm back again. The soup is cooked and I've added the parsley. I've taken a few shots which I'll pop in, and so hopefully you can see it, and just now it needs to go into bowls. I think it has everything. Everybody has their own idea of what they'd like to add. This is the simplest one. I have made it even simpler just with the cooking the onions in the butter, adding soup stock and nothing else. Some people like to put pepper in it. I haven't added pepper for this one. And sage, there's all sorts of spices that can go nicely with it as well. So something that you can try. So I'll just plate it up and show you then. So here we have it. We've got the French onion soup. I've done a close-up shot for you, and you'll see it's quite brown. The onions have cooked beautifully. You can cook it for longer. I didn't have my lid for this. I've recently moved and I cannot find the lid as yet. We've packed in one of the boxes, but in the meantime I've just put a little bit of sour cream and a sprinkling of chopped parsley on that. Then we can use a little smoked paprika, whatever you like. So I hope you'll give that a try and enjoy, and I'll see you another time. Thank you.